All right, so, hey everybody, I'm Shane. I have copies of my first novel. The second novel, the second novel is what I worked on here last summer, and it's coming out this fall. I just got edits back from my publisher the day before I got here, and I told them that I was not going to touch those while I was here, because I'm trying to write my third book while I'm here. And the edits will kind of get in your head a little bit, and because that's criticism and that's a negative energy. And it's very positive for the process, but ultimately it's not what I'm trying to feel like when I'm here. So I'm just working on the third novel, and what I write fiction. It's magical realism, so sort of in the vein of Gabriel Garcia Marquez or Salman Rushdie, who I studied a lot in graduate school and wrote my master's thesis on him. And so that work really influenced what I wanted to do. I like what you can do in that sort of world, in that sort of space. A very realistic character, a very realistic place, and then you just kind of throw some crazy stuff at them and see what happens, right? I think it's a really interesting lens through which we can view the human experience. And so in the first novel, it's called A Year Since the Rain, and it's about this town it's called Wasser, but it was originally founded as Wasser, right, like by Germans, way back in the day. And but now all the locals call it Wasser, and and Wasser obviously means water in German, and they called it that because it's surrounded by water almost. It's like there's a river that goes almost all the way around the town, and so water becomes a very important part of the economy and an important part of just the local culture. And then a serious drought hits, and it dries up, and the town literally starts to crumble. And so that's sort of what the book is about. If you zoom in on the book a little bit more, it focuses on this one guy named Alan, who is kind of your typical, I guess, millennial type, super stubborn, super immature, unwilling to grow, unwilling to move, those sorts of things. Very, very stubborn and naive. And so through the course of the book, it's really about him learning how to grow up, learning how to be an adult. And the other magical element of this is this character named Nona, who is he thinks she's a witch, but who knows what she really is. And she can walk through his dreams and help him figure out what his dreams are trying to tell him. And so that's A Year Since the Rain, and that's over there. You're welcome to look through it. But yeah, magical realism. And so what I've been working on in the second and third novel is an extended universe. If you think like the Marvel movies, right? Like with Iron Man and Hulk and all of these things, how the universe continues to grow, is I'm building an extended universe in this sort of magical place. So the mythology is the same, but the characters are all different. So all the books stand alone, but they also subtly reference each other. And the mythology is the same, like I said. So that's what I'm working on. So it's not as visually appealing as what Betsey does.
Unless you have a good imagination.
But if I were to interpret this painting through my book, I would say that, no, I'm just kidding.
It'll be the cover.
I was saying maybe you need some illustrations.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, honestly. Betsey does really great work, and she's working on one for me over there right now. So if you want to see, like, what's really cool about Betsey and what she's got up over here, is if you want to see her sort of process, it's much easier to see that than it is my process, right? And so if you, like, once we're done here, if you want to look at some of these things over here that are sort of like in process, I think that's really interesting. I love sharing this space with Betsey and with all the other artists that I've been in this space with, because like she said, I get to talk to them about process, and I'm always struck by similarities in composition, like in music composing or in visual art, to what I'm doing. And some of the stuff that Betsey and I talked about last year worked its way into the second novel, which is coming out soon. Camille is in there. This house is in that second novel. So like it is impossible for this place not to penetrate you, and that's why I plan on coming back as long as you'll have me. So, yeah.
I was just going to ask if you include some of your own life experience in your books, if it just creeps in, or you have some that you just majorly need to put in there.
Right, so A Year Since the Rain started out as a terrible poem. I wrote terrible poetry before I wrote mediocre books. And it started as a poem called A Year Since the Rain, and it was like a terrible, sappy, breakup poem, right, about this last time that I saw this girl and it was raining and everything. I wrote 7 pages of poetry and it was all garbage. And so I said, well, we'll put this back on the shelf because nobody needs this. Nobody needs another terrible breakup poem. So I put it back on the shelf. A year later, I started writing the story. The first sentence of the story is, last year when the river dried up, I was living next door to a witch. And it's one of the only sentences in the book that didn't go through any revisions. And it just kind of kept growing and growing. And I was like, okay, so I'm writing a short story. And then 6,000 words in, I'm like, oh, so I'm writing a novella. And then 25,000 words in, I'm like, okay, well, this is a novel. And then I just wrote it on out. And I really believed that it was an accident to write that one. And once you think and once you conceptualize on that big of a scale, it's easier the second time. And I think that you could probably testify to that when you paint on a bigger canvas for the first time, once you work on a bigger piece for the first time, it just gets easier the second time to conceptualize of an idea that big. But somebody asked about personal experience. And yes, all the time. But I'll never admit that outside of this room.
From the video.
And I know that you're going to put this on the internet. And that's fine. But yeah, it does creep in. It has to. The book that I'm working on right now is called The Woman with a Thousand Faces. And it is probably the most personal book that I've written. It's still fiction, but it's probably the closest to autobiographical that I've written. Everything else is crazy allegory. So it is my life, but it's through this crazy lens, So, but yeah, I do draw on it a lot.
I know a crazy question. Do you feel like when you're writing and you're including a lot of your own life that it helps you sort your life out to make some sense?
I think that if I'm honest about why I started writing to begin with, it's for the catharsis of it, which I think is where most art starts, is in catharsis.
Yeah, for sure.
And so yeah, I think it does help me make sense of it. And A Year Since the Rain is still ultimately a 273-page breakup poem. It's just in the form of prose, right? And it reads like a story instead of I'm just this girl or whatever.
Elaborate.
But so yeah, I think it does help me work through some of those sort of emotional turmoil, tumult. And right now, like I said, the third book being more personal, I think I'm really mining into some of those things that I've maybe shelved for a while. And because it's fiction, I think it frees me up a little bit more to really go after it. The first novel, I was really nervous because it's a little risque in places, and I was like, "What are my parents gonna think?" And my mom hates it. Parts of it. I'm like, "Mom, you just got to read past this page. She's on the page right now." And she's like, "I just can't even do it." And I was like, "Just turn the page. You don't even have to read the rest of the scene. You know what's happening." But it is it can be a little explicit, and I was worried about what people in my personal life would think about that. But at some point, you just kind of have to push past it because it's ultimately. The composition process is about me, but the reading process is about the reader and what they get out of it. And I love talking to people who've read my book because they all get something very different out of it. Just like everybody would get something very different out of Betsey's paintings. That is, I think, the value of art. It is cathartic for me, but hopefully it's cathartic maybe in a different way for whoever reads it. Ramble.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We had 2 residents that just left this morning, and what was very interesting I thought was it was a writer and his editor. And I guess you got to talk to, they were with you only 2 or 3 days, it was very short, but I thought it was very interesting. So I had to ask the question because I was just thinking, how do you get to be an editor? Are you a writer first, and then you get, in visual art, you do painting, and then you decide, well, I have to make money, I'm going to become a teacher, or you go to the things, and So I was wondering if it starts with going to school for writing, And then, you know, then you decide to be editing, or maybe the contrary, you are always attracted to be an editor, and then after so many books, you say, well, you know, they haven't really wrote that book that I want that I like to read, so then therefore I can write it because nobody wrote that kind of book, you know. So this woman was the editor, started on a novel here.
I think it's the first one, right?
Yeah,
I think she
first.
went to school for writing as well,
Yeah.
and then that ended up being her career. But she's working on a novel too.
Yeah.
So
Like, as an English major, I can tell you, I could edit somebody else's book. Like, I could line edit it and I could give them feedback on it. It's really easy to see issues in someone else's work. It's
Yes.
much more difficult to see something in your own work. And that's why, like, it's a little bit incestual, right? Because, like, I have to give my book to this person and they can give their book to me, and, like, we can find problems in each other's work. But I can't see stuff in my own work because I've been working on this book for 2 years. This is my baby. It's perfect. It's the star of the talent show. But, you know, and as soon as I give it to somebody else, page 1, line 5, they're like, this is a comma splice. And I'm like, ah! So, yeah, I mean, like, I could edit, and I edit for a living, I guess, technically.
Yeah, Amanda started as a teacher. She said she teaches in high school,
Mhm.
but then she really was so much interested in writing.
I think it's interesting that they knew each other and they came here. I want to know if it affects their future work, because that's what Shane and I did. We knew each other from here last year. It's affected us. So I would like to see if they come back in a year. I don't know.
They are coming back. And even say, less than, no, I'm not going to wait a year if you get me. I'll be there in the fall.
Right.
That's what it said.
That's good.
I would live here if you would let me.
So they want to come back. So that's interesting also, you know, these two came last year. So that's a big deal. And I think we are getting that, which is kind of give us a good sign that we are probably doing the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll be here every year you let us come.
In fact, you know, Shane asked me if you were going to book him. You know, when
Please.
can you book him?
I already gave her a heads up. We got to talk about it before
You
she
know, so
gets
I
here.
said, hey, wait a moment, you have to talk to Wendy. I'm not the one that booked, you know, I'm not micromanaging her. You have to talk to
And
her.
I'm like,
I said,
but
is she
you're
coming? Is she
Camille.
coming? I said, yes, she's coming.
Do you have your calendar? No?
On my phone.
All right, nice.
Good old phone.
Yeah,
Oh, that's it.
good. Very good. Then we got Morgan that were there, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, and I'll be back. Hopefully.
Morgan can come with us.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Maybe next year I'll
Yeah.
do that.
Could you tell us a little bit about your experience here?
Yeah, I arrived, I was booked for 2 weeks. I thought I'd be here with a couple other artists, and I got here and I was the only person. So I brought 5 pounds of cheese thinking and other ridiculous things like that. And it took me a couple of days just to adjust to of course me and Camille were hanging out and walking throughout the property, you know, it was great. It took me about 6 days to get started. I'd been to other residencies and there's a little bit more everyone gets to work right away. It's not competitive, but everyone's in this thing where they're wanting to show off their stuff, you know? So it was very relaxing. It was really good, yeah. And the effects of that lasted through today. So it was a wonderful
It
experience.
really does
I
help you
love
build a
this space.
momentum, right?
Yeah.
It took us a couple of days to sort of get into the vibe of it, both years. But when I left last year, I was just able to just churn out page after page even when I got back home. So it does help you build a momentum.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, Jared said he had his introduction in the first chapter. He was just here a week, so
Yeah.
he was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, and I've written 8,000 words in 4 days, so.
That's a lot.
Right. And I was like, today, I was like, it's not enough. I was kind of sad.
But it's nice to from what I hear you, some people are happy about the push, about the, energy, and then like, I think Morgan was kind of happy then not to have that push.
Yeah.
We were
it was,
like, okay, I can really,
I
slow
did
down.
a lot of
and
walking and hiking and
eating
going to the
cheese.
swing.
And playing flamenco.
Oh, yeah.
Did you get your guitar?
I didn't bring my guitar.
Oh, yeah.
Because otherwise we could have had a piece of flamenco right
Oh,
now.
you're like a genius.
Yeah,
Star of Facebook right now.
it was fun. You are.
Yeah, no, he's great. I saw his video. It's awesome.
So, yeah. And you saw his painting, right?
Yeah.
Did you get to see the... Did you get to see the painting of Morgan?
No,
It was on the newsletter, the last newsletter of Azule.
in the newsletter. Yeah, I did see that,
Yeah.
yeah. I thought you meant, did I see the original, No, I haven't seen the originals.
Yeah.
And that will happen, right?
Okay. Any other question or any things coming up?
I was curious, like, I'm come here several times and I've kind of got the little pieces of what goes on here. But like, like how many, so you're invited to come here and then do you pay or is this a paid internship?
Yes.
Yeah, so you pay.
apply.
You
Yeah, once you
apply.
get in, you pay. And
Okay, so it's like a little retreat center
It is.
as an artist.
yeah. And honestly, like when I this was the first residency that I did, and when I was thinking about, like, do I want to pay to go write somewhere, I do understand the value of getting away from my place to do stuff. And if I'm going to do that anywhere else, I'm going to have to pay for a hotel or I'm going to have to pay for a condo or something, like to just go hang out there. And this is nowhere as expensive as what that would be. It is absolutely worth it for the amount of work that you get done. The day is yours. You can do whatever you want to with it. There's not an obligation to do anything. Camille comes over at night and talks to you if you want to talk, and that's awesome. But other than that, you just kind of hang out and do whatever you want to do. It's really great.
Is it a set period of time that you stay or?
We decide on it beforehand. Like each time I've done it, it's just been a week. But Shane did a week last year and then decided on 11 days this
Yeah.
year. I think it's better to do more time. I think this is residency number 5, and they've all been a week. And I think the residency sweet spot is 2 weeks. I think, because once I'm done with a week, I want to just keep staying
Yeah.
and making more work.
You're just getting in the groove of things like that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the residency is 4 days to 4 weeks. We haven't accepted anybody for more than 4 weeks so far.
And how many people can stay in the building?
It's 3.
Three.
Well, there were 4 there because they knew each other and the others knew each other, so we were able to combine and it was okay. But when we get a workshop or some like we are going to have the writer in a school in Asheville. They are teenagers, they are high school kids, and bi-language, Spanish and English. And last year they came 15, and this year they are coming 25. But we did accept it. 25 is really pushing the place, But they done so good at 15, and they got 3 people that take care of them, and they are very reasonable, and all this all said, go ahead. So they are coming 25 of them. And what is interesting, the last year was the first year that they came. And there are several high schools in Asheville, and they are minority, children, and Spanish and then African American. And so that was the first time coming from different high schools. It was their first meeting, so that was kind of their bonding things. And so then they went and wrote, and so they wrote a digital a newspaper for youth by youth, and they got an award winning. They really done extremely good. And so this year, Tamiko said, okay, so now you are going to interview the new batch. So they were the one, in place of being the adult, they decided, because they learned a lot of skill. And they said it was amazing how much they were able to listen to any, which when you're a teenager, you don't want to listen, And they really listened to everyone and took notes, and, so it's a tremendous amount of skill that they learned. And they all wanted to come back. And so they are the one that say, we should have that again for the new batch. There's few of them that are still there, but some graduate and they are gone. They went to college. They are going to college. So, and they want to do it at Azule.
So will they all stay here?
Yeah, 25. Can you imagine? And we got only one shower. But they manage, they know how to do it, and the guy then do the cooking, they all participate, and it's very organized and it's very rewarding. Yeah, very good.
How long will they be?
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So it's a short trip. That's how we can do 25. We couldn't do this for the whole week. I think that would be a little bit difficult, but And then in August we are having another group that is coming. Then they rent the whole house, and that's Leanne Brown. She's a poet. She's a girl that is a teacher in New York, and she's married to Tony Thorne. I don't know if you know Tony Thorne in Marshall. They work in New York, but they have a house in Madison County, and they were owning that church that became the art council for a couple of years before they came to their new thing. So anyway, they sold this because they didn't work, and so they approached me and said, we don't need that building if you let us stay here. So they are going to come for the eclipse. And so they are all writers. And Tony Thorne is the son of Geraldine Page and Rip Thorne, the actor. And he has a twin, and he's a funny guy. He does a lot of Il Bureau, which is a personage, French literature. Anyway, so they are going to come, and Rebecca said that they are going to have a band at Rebecca's place, on the Roaring Fork. And that's Larry Hayes. Larry Hayes used to live here a long time ago with Mickey, and so there was 3 people that bought the same piece of land. And anyway, Larry keep his, and Rebecca bought Joe and Judy, that were our friend. And so Larry is coming with his band in Florida, and so they are going to play at the cabin, and then on the 21st, or for the eclipse, they are going to Max Patch. They are going to hold all the instruments on top of Max Patch, and they are going to play in Max Patch, and they are also opening it to any local artists that want to play with them.